Hey guys, it's Lavetta.
Hi, it's Miriam.
And welcome to Notorious Women Podcast, a comedy podcast about some of history's most notorious women.
Yes.
We're just talking offline about an old Sinbad bit that's hilarious about mothers and you know how your mother loses her mind. And like,
I was just sharing because I have 2 kids, they're twins, and I love them more than everything in the whole world. And sometimes, man, I'm like, I just like, there's like a part of me that's like, I don't even know you were there when I get so mad. And I'm like, how dare you? You know, and they're looking at me like, what?
Oh
my God.
This is why
I'm like, I just wanted to run into the middle of the street, Mom. What's the problem? Oh my God. And the thing is, it's like when you're like really little, and you're like, oh, no. And you hold their hands. But then they get to an age where they're like, I'm not going to hold your hand. I don't even want to look at you in public because I'm cool and you're not cool. And so that's where we're kind of at right now. And so now, once again, there's more risk because once again, now I don't like, I'll be like, I will hold your hand and call you cutesy pootsy wootsy if you don't listen to me. It's actually a pretty good threat. Actually, I like using that as a threat.
I know. I mean, the good thing is that they are asserting their independence, which is good, right?
I mean, supposedly they're supposed to go through this phase.
Yeah.
But like, my God. I'm so tired.
Well, on that note, I guess we should get started.
Yeah, we should probably do that.
I think you are first this week.
I am?
Yeah.
That sounds good. Listen, I just do what you say. That's just how
I literally look it up right before we start.
I can't keep track.
Who's your notorious woman this week that you're going to tell me about?
Okay, so my notorious woman this week is one I keep finding all the really amazing, cool people.
Mm-hmm.
I'm on a roll here. Her name is Autherine Juanita Lucy.
Autherine Juanita Lucy?
Yes.
No, I've never heard of her.
I don't 100% know that I'm saying her name correctly. It's Autherine. Autherine? Maybe Autherine?
Oh, I don't know.
And it's beautiful.
Yeah.
So this is a fascinating woman. And a fascinating story. So she was born October 5th, 1929. She was born in Shiloh, Alabama. Her parents were sharecroppers. So she was the youngest child in a family of 5 sons and 4 daughters. I just want to shout out to her mother right now. I'm just gonna be a quick damn girl. 9 times.
And they did it with no epidural back then.
You know? And what did you do with a bladder infection? I mean, you know what I mean? But they just are like, we're fine. You know, they're stronger people than we are, I think.
Oh, and back then, though, the treatment was oftentimes just as bad as the thing you were treating. Ugh.
But, I mean, they did it, man. More power to them.
They did it.
So they owned and farmed 110 acres. And her father also did some blacksmithing and made baskets and axe handles to supplement their income. But I mean, 9 kids, that's impressive.
Wait a minute. So they own their own land?
They says they were sharecroppers and they owned and farmed 110 acres.
Oh, because usually sharecroppers is that you work other people's land.
Yeah. So I don't know.
Or you know what? Actually, I take that back because sometimes it was a hybrid kind of thing.
Yeah.
So you had land, but then you had to also work other people's land. It was very difficult to really get ahead as a sharecropper.
It's it's not an.
But
easy
if they give
life,
you a little bit of
I think they give you a certain amount of land. Yeah, but that's a lot of land.
But also, it's you till our land and yours. And
right.
It's that's why you need all those kids. Now we understand.
I get that now. I feel like my kids need to earn their keep more.
I know.
I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like, at least take the dish that I made you to the sink. You know, like, without me asking 3 times. I'm sorry. I'm digressing. Okay.
But you know what? In defense of the kids, we were the same way when we were kids.
God, you know what? I was probably worse, to be honest with you. All right. So she went to public school through grade 10. And then after that, she went to the Linden Academy in Linden, Alabama, which was impressive at that time. Girls did not necessarily continue their education. She graduated in 1947, then went to Selma University in Selma for 2 years, after which she studied at the historically Black Miles College in Fairfield and graduated from Miles with a BA in English in 1952.
Wow.
Yeah.
Go
so
girl.
Get it, girl.
Yes.
So in September of 1952, a friend of hers, Polly Myers, who was a civil rights activist with the NAACP, and her applied to the University of Alabama. Okay. So remember the 50s in the South? Yeah. Yeah. It was, yeah. So later she said she just wanted a second undergraduate degree. She wasn't it wasn't a political thing. She was just trying to get the best possible education in the state. Now, if you look at her history, that makes sense. It definitely tracks. She was very academic, and she was, obviously very, very smart.
Isn't that what they tell you? Pull yourself up by your bootstraps, get an education.
Oh,
right? Isn't that what she's trying to do?
Yeah. If only you would pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Yeah. And so, yeah.
Now give me your boots.
Yeah. Once again. All right. So women were accepted. I'm sorry. Let me rephrase that. Sometimes I say things. Yes, obviously women were accepted at the time, but they were accepted. So they both applied and they were both accepted. And then, you know what I'm going to say.
She showed up.
Mm-hmm. And they were like, oh, and they they literally were like, oh, we thought you were white. Never mind. We're rescinding your acceptance.
Well, it's Alabama, so they say it right to your face.
I mean, at least they say that to your face and not like, oh, no, we looked at your records and there's a thing that we didn't let, you know what I mean? At least it's like, no, I'm racist.
No, I mean, sometimes it's that first. And then when you're not getting it, then they do that. And then they say, no, we're rescinding it because you're Black. And then if you don't leave, then they bring out the N word with the hard ER. That's usually how that works.
It's exhausting. And I just think of these white people who are like letting them in, but then changing their mind and then, arguing. Like, you know what? Your life, you could just go to the movies, just let them in and then like go on a vacation somewhere. Move it along. You know what I'm saying?
No, but then she become uppity. She become an uppity negress. You can't have that. Come on now. You know how this works.
Oh God, yeah.
She can't be uppity. She got her little education. Now. Come on.
You're right. She
can't think well of herself. What?
White supremacy never sleeps, and that's just how it is. So
that's right.
So they were pissed. So backed by the NAACP, they charged the university with racial discrimination in a court case that took almost 3 years to resolve. Now, while waiting, she was an English teacher in Carthage, Mississippi, and she was also a secretary at an insurance company. I am sure she wanted a higher education so she could get a higher paying job as an educator and not have to work 2 jobs. I think that's reasonable.
Wait a minute. She went to Mississippi. Okay. For those of you who are not from the South, Mississippi is spelled M-I, cricket letter, I, humpback, I. That's how we learn how to spell Mississippi in the South. Okay. Mississippi is known to be racist, even in a racist South.
Yeah.
So the fact that she had to leave Alabama and go to Mississippi, oh my Lord.
Listen,
I can't even.
I like watching all like the HGTV, you know, I'm obsessed. But sometimes there's one, I'm not going to name it, that's in Mississippi, and I still watch it, but I'm every time there's a Black person on, I'm like, are you okay? You know, I'm like,
we learn. You just have to, I mean, also because it's people's home. I mean,
yeah.
But again, like I'm from Florida, as you guys may or may not know, even though I say it every episode.
Yeah. It's true.
When you're from a shitty state, you could say it because we can say it. We know it's shitty. So how I trash Florida, I'm sure people from Mississippi trash Mississippi, you know, even though it's your home and you love it. You know, the South is a very beautiful place, but you still gonna call it out, right?
You got to call it out, right? I mean, listen, she was okay in Mississippi, it seemed. So, you know, good. I actually met a woman, this is a total side note, at a coffee shop in LA who was from Mississippi. And we had a really great conversation because she's Black and she's a lawyer and she's very cool. And she was saying that she's like, listen, I don't know, we got on a subject and she's like, racism is just so different there. She's here to study and she wants to go back and be a lawyer and fight for all the good things. But she was just like, people don't even know what the energy there is just so different. Yeah. And I was like, okay. I mean, I'm not going to pretend to know anything. I've never.
Also, you just like, that's a story of being Black in America since we've been Black here, since we've been here, that you have to find a place for yourself, right?
Yes.
So it doesn't mean we're not going to fight to change it and make things better, but it's still home, right? Like,
yeah.
I still have Florida in my bones. Fucking Florida.
Sorry about that.
So, but I also know that Florida is a very beautiful state, you know, and have very beautiful people. Not everybody in Florida is terrible, just a lot of them. And a lot of terrible people move there. So,
that's true.
So I understand it. Like, I mean, we joke about it, but I'm just saying in the South, even we are like, don't go to Mississippi. So we're like, that's worse than Florida.
But also too, you have these enclaves of your people, right? Like wherever you go, I mean, like Jews have this too, to a lesser degree. Do we need it? But yeah, like that, there's your community and you're safe within that community and you're good.
Yeah.
You know? Okay. So on June 29th, 1955, the NAACP secured a court order preventing the university from rejecting the admission applications because of their race. So, like, Autherine was admitted. However, this is fun. So Polly was rejected on the grounds that while this was going on, she had a child conceived before marriage, which made her an unsuitable student. Now, let me be clear. She was married. They just did math about they hired a PI to find something wrong with both of them so that they could dismiss them on other grounds. And they found that this woman dared have sex with a man before wedlock.
So not okay. That's a dick move, as we all know. But it's like, motherfuckers, if you had just admitted her when she applied, 4 years earlier, 3 years earlier?
3. Yep.
Then she wouldn't have had time on her hands to get married and have a kid. Yeah. So fuck you. It's just,
she would have given you all of her money. That's what would have happened.
It's just moving the goalpost.
Yeah. 100%. 100%.
Fuckers.
I'm so fucking pissed. Bastards. And they say she was the one that was like trying to fight for their rights. She was like, we're going to do this. Like, she kind of convinced Autherine to do this with her. And then, man. Okay. So here's the thing. Autherine went. She was convinced to go. She wasn't sure at first if she couldn't go with her friend. But they did not let her into the dormitories or the dining halls.
Of course not.
Nope.
Pull yourself up by your own bootstraps.
Yeah. Also, we're going to starve you.
Yeah, you can't have any food and you can't stay in the dorms.
Motherfuckers. So on February 3rd, 1956, she enrolled as a grad student in library science, becoming the first ever African-American ever to be admitted to a white public school or university in the state. She attended her first class on Friday, February 3rd, 1956. Now, on Monday, February 6th, 1956, so 3 days later, riots broke out on the campus and a mob of more than 1,000 men pelted the car in which the Dean of Women drove Lucy between classes. Okay. Threats were made against her life, and the university president's home was stoned.
So these white students were acting like thugs?
Is that the word you want to use? Is that the word?
Thugs,
are you sure?
Hoodlums.
Hoodlums? I mean, wait, Lavetta, I told you they were white. So.
Yeah. I know.
Mm-hmm. So these thugs and hoodlums.
Mm-hmm. Rioted because they let in a black gal.
Shit at a woman. Okay.
Yeah.
I raised my boy to be charming and courteous. No, you don't. No, you don't.
So they got this mad because a black woman was going to get her master's degree in library studies?
In library science. It's library not like she's
science.
Like political science, which she'd have every right to do. But you know what
CRT.
I mean? Oh no, them's fighting words.
Shit, library science.
Library science. So she can tell you where Mark Twain is. Calm down. I mean... Okay.
Wow. I'm not surprised, but yeah, go ahead.
I know, but over 1,000 motherfuckers. So the police were called to secure her attendance. I'm sure that worked really well. Yeah. Right? Yeah. No, it didn't.
Also, you know, it's so annoying because it's like they do this. They throw a hissy fit.
Yeah.
Clucking away, as they said in Lovecraft Country. they clucking away. You get it? Ku Klux Klan.
Oh. You know, that took me a long time, but I did get it eventually.
Clucking away over this woman trying to get her education.
Yeah.
And we're the morally bankrupt ones. Like,
right.
It's just, but also it's like they do all of this because they want you to just give up because they throw a hissy fit over something that they say this country is about. Right. And the whole thing is like, they're going, and then they can come to you and be like, is it really worth it? You're causing all of this.
Oh, girl.
So is it really worth it?
Right. Yeah. And that's the thing that gets me, the amount of violence that happens. White people start and aggressively use, and to this day, the picture is still painted that it is Black people causing the problems. Like, and yet that is not our history. That is not what happened.
Again, Europe had 100-year war. So
100 years, white on white violence.
White on white crime. Mm-hmm. I'm just saying. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
I'm worried about those people. Those white people, they really just don't know.
1,000 people
That's
rioted.
a lot of fucking people throwing stones and being aggressive.
A Black woman to study library science. Okay.
Yeah.
So she's a big old nerd.
Yeah.
Threatened this much by a nerd.
Right.
She's a big old nerd.
She just wants to understand the index. I mean, you know what? I'm a shout out to
Dewey Decimal System.
I just want to be clear that I couldn't really be a librarian. And I would like to shout out to all librarians everywhere who are fighting the good fight to keep literacy, literature, like alive and thriving. They're so important. I don't know. I feel like a PSA is necessary. They are the most underappreciated and the most necessary thing that keeps our lives civilized.
Yep.
That's what I have to say about that. Thank you for listening. I'll be here all week. Okay.
I got you.
Thank you. I appreciate you. All right. So this will surprise no one. So I should just say that these riots at the university were what was to date. Now, this is, I'm pretty sure that's still the same. The most violent post-Brown, because remember, Brown versus Board of Education passed a year earlier, 2 years earlier.
Yeah, 54.
54. Anti-integration demonstration. So after the riots, what do you think happened? Yeah. They suspended her. Because her own safety was a concern. They were really worried about her.
Look at what she's causing.
Yeah, it's a problem because
grown-ass people who's supposed to be educated rioting because they let in a black nerd to study library science.
Nerd to study library science.
Yeah.
Okay, so Martin Luther King Jr. actually wrote a sermon in 1956 about what happened, and he delivered it at the Dexter Avenue Baptist Church the day before his trial for violating Alabama's anti-boycott law. So this is what he had to say. Now, I got his speech off of Wikipedia, so if I'm a little bit off, I apologize. I don't think I am, but I like how he phrased it, and he paints the picture, and so I want to paint the picture as well. So he says, as soon as Autherine Lucy walked on the campus, a group of spoiled students led by Leonard Wilson, P.S. I'm happy to call out those people, and a vicious group of criminals began threatening her on every hand. Crosses were burned. Eggs and bricks were thrown at her. The mob even jumped on top of the car in which she was riding. Finally, the president and trustees of the University of Alabama asked Autherine to leave for her own safety and the safety of the university. The next day, after Autherine was dismissed, the paper came out with this headline: "Things are quiet in Tuscaloosa today. There is peace on the campus of the University of Alabama." Yes, things were quiet in Tuscaloosa. Yes, there was peace on the campus, but it was peace at a great price. It was peace that had been purchased at the exorbitant price of an inept trustee board succumbing to the whims and caprices of a vicious mob. It was peace that had been purchased at the price of allowing mobocracy to reign supreme over democracy. Okay. Can we just talk about the word mobocracy for a second? Because I like that. He was a great writer.
They threw a hissy fit. And she paid the price because,
Listen, I just feel like a thousand pacifiers should have been sent to those little babies.
Miriam.
What?
She should pull herself up by her own bootstraps. What part of that do you not understand?
I think if you just say that over and over again, it'll start to make sense.
Even though she's being threatened and expelled.
And getting thrown shit at.
They get this triggered over one black nerd.
Yeah.
Think about that.
Though. Yeah.
They got this triggered over one black girl.
I'm sorry, who's the snowflake?
Not girl.
Woman.
Actually, not even girl. Woman.
Yeah.
Who had already had a degree.
She had a degree. She had her BA. Listen, let's talk about snowflakes for a second. Who needs their baba to sleep every night?
It's not baba. They're racist
like
baba.
It's like a blanket. Don't you call a blanket a baba? No,
not
is that
baba.
Me? Am I alone? I'm alone. Okay.
That's so cute. A racist baba.
A racist baba. Here you go, baby. I know. He's your boss.
You're racist baba.
I know. It's so hard when black people want to educate themselves. I know. Once you go to sleep forever.
But mommy, I don't want the black girl to be uppity.
Oh, honey. That makes perfect sense. Why don't you nap?
I know, sweetie. And then the racist mom is like, I know, sweetie. But we gonna get rid of that gal.
Right? Oh, those racist mamas.
Yep. Right there. Oh, man.
So, okay. So here's what happened. So Thurgood Marshall, who helped win the 1954 landmark Supreme Court desegregation case. Y'all know this, right? Brown v. Board of Education. It's like the one thing they teach you about.
I know.
School.
That might be gone soon.
Shit. Can't have that. We can though. Sorry. So it was unconstitutional, right? So he felt that if the Supreme Court decided something, then the rest of the country would follow its decision, which like now when I like read that sentence, that stresses me out a little bit.
Yeah.
But in this case, I can see it, and maybe that's a good thing. In terms of women's rights, it's not a good thing right now. I'll just say it, elephant in the room. But so the attorneys, Arthur Shores was the attorney and Thurgood Marshall. They helped build a lawsuit against the university, like again, because they believe the school helped the white mob by not having protection for her and prevented Lucy from attending class. Now, they actually had some people who were not students as the mob, so that's interesting.
Of course they did.
How did that happen?
They invited their thug buddies on campus. And I just want to take a moment to think about how terrified she must have been.
Yeah.
Like,
oh my God.
She's probably, or there's part of her, like, if she's like me, it's like, these motherfuckers, I'm just trying to go to school and learn library science. Really?
I know. I mean,
but how terrifying that must have been. Them throwing, turning over cars, threatening to kill her because she wants to read books.
I mean, if you like, it's a good moment to like, if you think about how, I'll say it, like white people are like, this is the greatest country in the world. And they get very nationalistic. Is that a word? You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Why I would say at this point, a solid almost majority of people don't have a background of this country being the best country to them. And maybe it's not a majority, but it's a solid.
But Miriam,
yes,
darkies don't matter. What you talking about, girl? I mean, yeah, it don't matter.
Once again, my liberal ways.
They got their freedom, even though we paid the slave owners reparations and never gave them anything. But what else they want?
I once got into an argument. It was like a family thing. And it was, listen, I have all these like cousins and second degree of, I don't know, like second removed aunt from, I don't know how family works really well. First cousin, thrice removed. I don't, and they're like this. Anyways, this person, I don't know why. I get bored at family events. And so I start things. And I said, and I sort of painted the picture of slavery. And I said, how can that be considered the greatest country? Like we started great. I was like, no, we started bad. And they kept saying, you'll like this, but if you take out like slavery and Jim Crow laws, really we're the greatest country. And they kept wanting to take it out. And I kept being like, you can't take it out. Like,
well, if you take it out, then you have no economic base for the country to exist.
Like, how did we do anything?
If you take it out, you don't have any rock and roll.
Nope.
Right? You take it out,
God, right?
You don't have any blues. You don't have any R&B. You don't have any hip hop. If you take it out, you take out most of what people consider Americana, American culture. If you take it out, you don't have cowboys.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Say that.
You might have a version of that, but you ain't going to have the cowboys that we know.
Right.
If you take it out, you don't have a lot of the things that we associate with America's greatness.
Listen,
so
Lavetta,
that's all we're saying.
Why weren't you at this family event with me? That would have been really helpful.
No, I'm the same way when you get into it with somebody and like you get so angry that you don't have a comeback. And then later on, you're like, I should have said this and I should have said that. And
I'm married to a very level-headed white man. And I have learned to literally be like, Sal, I need you to go talk to that person about this thing because I'm going to start crying and that's not going to get my point across. And he'll do it. And they end up loving him. And honestly, they quite often will agree with him, but also disagree. You know what I mean? Like,
well, you know, because it's coming out of the mouth of a white man. Like,
yeah, I'm just a little
but
girl.
big up to the white men who get it and they use their privilege for good.
Oh, he's exhausted, but I don't care. He's not done.
They're like, let me go and white mansplain this to them. And then they're like, oh, I see.
Like, why didn't
it's
she
remarkable.
say that?
If you've never seen it happen, it's remarkable when a white man opens up his mouth. And if he has any semblance of intelligence or articulation, it's amazing the amount of attention he garners. So
I've seen it because I've been the one.
We all have.
Oh my God, right? And I'm like, but I said the exact same thing. No, but now you understand it. Okay. You know what?
Honestly, that's what our president, Joe Biden, is. Like,
yes. Yeah.
That's why people are like, oh, black people love Joe Biden. We're like, well, he's our avatar because we know that y'all would listen to an old white man. And even then, y'all tried to overturn the election. You fuckers.
Seriously,
we're
assholes.
like, we need another old white man to talk to beat the other old white man.
And at this
who's
point,
a moron.
I'm absolutely fine. I don't care.
Yeah, he's not just perfect, but he's an old white man. It's
listen, I'll tell you who's perfect, but you ain't gonna vote for that person. So let's just get an old white man. Fine. I could give up.
But it's just remarkable, so. But Autherine, oh, poor thing.
So what happens is they do go back to court because Thurgood was like, I believe in this. And he writes a letter to her saying, whatever happens in the future, remember for all concerned that your contribution has been made toward equal justice for all Americans and that you have done everything in your power to bring this about. So they filed contempt of court charges against the trustees and president of the university, against the dean of women for barring her from the dining hall and dormitories, and against 4 other men. So they found 4 specific men, apparently, for participating in the riots. Those men were not connected to the university, which is interesting. So here's what happened. It's not great. The federal court in Birmingham ordered that she be reinstated, and the university must take adequate measures to protect her. Okay. Then they expelled her permanently on this is Wikipedia wrote, a hastily contrived technicality. So they claimed that she had slandered the university in the lawsuit by saying they were mean to her, which made the university look bad. And
barring her from the dining halls and the dorms was not being mean to her.
Nope. No, it's not.
Get the fuck out of here,
no,
Alabama.
It's not. Alabama can fuck off. And they did eventually, I'll tell you. So they agreed that they were done. Because then anything else would be like, oh, well, now you're saying this about us? Slander. All right. So
it's only slander if you didn't do it.
Right.
But you motherfuckers did it.
You fucking did it. Do you know what slander means? Jesus. Okay. Seriously. Okay. So, these white people just get everything they want, don't they? In April of 1956, she gets married to a man named Hugh Foster, who's a divinity student, and he later became a minister, that they had met at Miles College. So for some months afterwards, she was a civil rights advocate. She made speeches at NAACP meetings around the country. But by the end of the year, her active involvement at the civil rights movement stopped. So after she was expelled, she actually went to go live with Thurgood Marshall in New York with him and his wife because they were worried for her safety. But then,
they should be.
Yeah. But then for the next 17 years, she and her family, they got married. She had some children, lived in various cities in Louisiana, Mississippi, and Texas. At first, it was really hard to find employment as a teacher because everybody knew her as the troublemaker, right?
Yeah, she's a troublemaker.
Yeah, she's the problem.
To learn library science. Okay, yeah.
I can't believe she wanted to learn library science. Like, how dare she? All right. So in 1974, so many years later, she did obtain a position in the Birmingham school system. In 1988, her expulsion was officially annulled by the University of Alabama.
It took the motherfuckers to 1988.
Yeah, it did.
Wow.
Like, so.
And this happened at what, 56?
52 is when she applied,
52.
got in, and they changed their mind.
So over 30 years.
Now, listen, I'm confused because I was pretty sure that racism had ended by the 80s. I'm confused.
I think you would be right, Miriam. I think it ended in 1964. At least that's what they told us.
That's right. Because the civil rights movement, they passed the civil rights. Okay. So I don't understand. I'm very confused.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. I'm not confused. All right.
Yeah, again, guys, we're not. Yeah. It's bullshit.
So much sarcasm, so little time. So she enrolled in the graduate program in education in 1988, received her MA in 1992. They named an endowed fellowship in her honor and unveiled a portrait of her in the student union. The inscription reads, "Her initiative and courage won the right for students of all races to attend the university. She is a sister of the Zeta Phi Beta sorority." Like, I really hope that not only was her education free, but she got like a stipend while she was there.
See, now, Miriam, this is why we are co-hosts, because that's exactly what I was thinking. I wanted to hear free of charge.
Free of charge. That's what I'm saying. I don't know. But
these motherfuckers.
Because there's really nothing you can do to take away like the shame and awfulness that she had to go through.
And but also they took away 30 years of her life.
30 years.
Of her progress in life.
Yep.
By some bullshit, because they didn't either have the balls or they were in on it.
I mean, maybe both, right? I don't know. So, I don't know. Listen, I just need but they also, on November 3rd, 2010, because this shit takes time apparently, there's the Autherine Lucy Clock Tower. It was dedicated in a new space honoring 3 people, her, Vivian Malone, and James Hood, which were 3 individuals who pioneered desegregation at the University of Alabama. It was located beside Foster Auditorium, where in 1963, Alabama Governor George Wallace unsuccessfully attempted to bar Malone and Hood from registering at the university. So this university has some history. Okay.
Well, yeah. And, I got to do my my impersonation of him, right?
I do. I know this.
George Wallace. Segregation today, segregation tomorrow, segregation forever. Because I was a racist bigot. Segregation.
It's so good.
It's terrible.
Oh,
he was a terrible human being. Segregation.
Yeah, he is like, I'm the Antichrist. Like, he's a bad man. All right. I heard he changed his mind later, and so we're supposed to forgive him for shit.
Fuck off.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Thanks. Yeah.
Yeah.
That feels
He only
right.
changed his mind because he lost the president. He lost his bid for president.
Wait, let me try another tactic to gain more power. That's
you don't
what
get
happened.
Credit. You don't get credit for stop being a terrible human being.
Yeah, I'm tired of giving people credit for like no longer being a Nazi. You know what I mean? Yeah. That's just like bare minimum. Like, you should never have been that Nazi. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. So unless he gave all his fortune away to some little black chillins, I don't fucking care.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Which, you know what? Off. If he did that, we could reassess.
That'd be great.
Yeah. I'll reassess it.
I don't know about reassess, but maybe I wouldn't call him a fucker anymore. Segregation.
You just go to asshole, right? Not a fucker, just an asshole. That's fair. Exactly. That feels fair.
And I'm sure his family members who, if they are listening, or his descendants, are like, yeah, that tracks.
I mean, like, if they're listening,
no notes.
That probably tracks. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's
no notes.
No notes. Perfect.
And that is what we should all say. Like, if we have, if we're descendants of terrible people, which we all have them in our family, but like famously like racist or like just terrible human beings, or, sexist or anti-Semites, just terrible human beings. Those are not your sins. Just be like, yeah, that tracks.
Yeah. I mean, exactly. Like the whole, DeSantis and all that attempt to like go back to like, white supremacy is good now. Those people, they're like, what about my white history? Like, you know what? Call that shit out. That's fine. Like,
but no, we have white history. That's how I know about the 100-Year War. White on white crime.
You told me. I mean, that I was tested on it. You really needed me to know about that.
That's European history. European, not European. European history. That's white on white crime.
Thank you for the elocution lesson.
European.
Oh man. Okay.
So yeah, don't get defensive if you're the descendant of terrible people. Just be like, yeah, okay.
Right? I would be like, I'm fine with that. I'd be like, oh wow.
And I'm gonna do better. Thank God I'm not that asshole.
I'm trying to think if I can think of anyone in my family. I'm sure they're there. I can't think of
we all have them.
It goes back like a million years. Who knows?
We all have them. So.
I mean, it's fine. And you like to think that like now they'd know better. But
it's just like who's the guy that I think he created the Nobel Peace Prize because he made his fortune off of like gunpowder or something.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
Just try and make amends. That's all you got to do.
Do something better,
Yeah.
So this is fun. So on September 15th, I'm almost done, I promise. 2017, a special marker was erected in her honor near Graves Hall on campus. So she returned to speak at the ceremony, and she compared the crowd that welcomed her with the hatred she had encountered the first time. Girl, yes, talk about it. Don't pretend. I love her. So in May 2019, they gave her at the spring graduation an honorary doctorate. So her legacy continues. There's a $25,000 scholarship named after her. So February 3rd, 2022, they added her name to what was formerly Bibb Graves Hall. Then they changed it to Lucy Graves Hall, right? But then there was an outcry because do you know who Graves is? Yeah, he's a KKK member. So, yeah, right? But they listened and they dropped his name. And now the building is Autherine Lucy Hall.
Yeah, Alabama. You can't.
That was 2022.
You can't expect people not to think that all Southerners are dumb, racist hicks when you want to name a building after a KKK member. You just can't do it, people. I'm always trying to defend the South. And then y'all go and try and name a building after a KKK member. You can't do it. Can't do it. Stop it. Stop it.
Next time you want to, just go to Lavetta and she will explain to you once again why you can't do that. And the reason is because you can't.
No,
and then
you can't do it.
So she died March 2nd, 2022 at the age of 92. And her grandniece, Nikema Williams, is a member of the U.S. House of Representatives and chair of the Democratic Party of Georgia. Okay.
Oh,
right.
I love that.
I know, right?
Oh, yes.
Right?
I love that.
Aww. So good, right?
It's so good. So good.
That is Autherine Lucy. Oh my God. Okay. So here's what happens. I always want to look. I look at so I don't want to mess it up. Autherine Juanita Lucy. Yes.
Wow. American hero.
American hero.
Thank you so much for doing that. I really appreciate that. I had never heard of her. That name is very old school, Autherine.
I love
Autherine. It's probably Autherine. That's probably what a family said.
It's beautiful.
I love it. Thank you so much for sharing that. Now, my Notorious Woman this week is very different. We're going to go on the other side of the world and go back to the 6th century.
The 6th century?
Yeah, the 6th century
CE. Okay.
Where Khadijah BINT Khuwaylid. Okay, I'm just going to say. I don't speak Arabic, even though I wanted to study Arabic at one time. So forgive my pronunciation. So Khadijah BINT Khuwaylid.
Khuwaylid. So I speak a little Hebrew. So they're similar. Arabic and Hebrew are like they're cousins.
Yes.
But I still can't help you with that name. So I apologize.
So Khadijah, and my main sources today came from funci.org, funci.org, which is a site that preserves the cultural heritage of Muslim countries, Encyclopedia Britannica, and another website called alfurqan.com. As well. So as well as some other YouTube videos I watched. But so Khadijah BINT Khuwaylid was born in the 6th century CE in Mecca, Arabia, which is present day Saudi Arabia.
Oh, wow.
She was born into a merchant and highly regarded family in the Quraysh tribe. Her father, Khuwaylid ibn Asad, was the leader of the Quraysh tribe in Makkah, and her mother, Fatima bint Zaida, was a successful businesswoman from a merchant family as well.
Okay.
So she was born from like a high-born family, highly regarded family, who were merchants. But her father, who was head of the family and head of the tribe, he died in battle. So when he died in battle, she took over the family business and expanded it and developed it like even beyond her father's wildest dream.
Oh, wow.
And she developed the business. So as a merchant, it was a trading family. So she developed it so large that she would often have large caravans taking goods back and forth across terrain, large distances for business.
Wow. I can't even imagine what that must have taken back then.
I know, right? And she was so like successful. She became famous for her business acumen.
Really? Mm-hmm. Do you ever wonder, like, okay, as they're going across the desert, like, where do you pee? I mean,
I would imagine
like behind the cactus over there. I'm thinking the American West, behind the camel, maybe.
Yeah, like just away from people, like, because it's a freaking desert, so nothing's going to survive. And so her caravans could be found all over the Arabian Peninsula, from Yemen to northern Syria.
That's a lot of area.
Yep. So even though she was surrounded by, this is what I find so remarkable, she was surrounded by, of course, her brothers and uncles, but she had the final word and led the family business. So this is how good she was at business. So for the other men to be like, yeah, we're going to let her take it. Yep.
That's awesome. I love it.
Yeah. Now, so during the time of the, oh gosh, I'm so sorry. During the time of, that was before the religion of Islam, because before it, by this time.
Oh yeah, you're right.
Yeah. It's called Jahiliya. Again, forgive my pronunciation. I mean, no disrespect whatsoever. Trying my best.
Is it the religion that they are?
No, it's just a time period. It's an Arabic word for like the time before Islam.
Oh, I didn't know there was a word. I just learned something.
Yeah, Jahiliya.
Can you spell that?
Jahiliyyah.
I have no advice.
So before this time, Khadijah was considered, like I said, a remarkable woman. She was admired all over for her strength of character, her power, and her autonomy. As a woman, 6th century. Now, her decision to choose a husband dominated in an era by men in polygamy, and where women had no rights or social status.
That sucks. So I'll just say it. That sucks.
Yeah. So now in this regard, historian Bettany Hewers, who presented the documentary When the Moors Ruled in Europe, said that, quote, it was her business acumen that would set her on a path that would eventually change the history of the world, end quote.
Wow.
This is what she said of Khadijah.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. Now, before the changing, and she goes on to say in this article, before the changing of the history of the world, Khadijah first began changing the mindsets of those around her by gaining their respect of her fellow countrymen and asserting herself as a powerful woman.
So this is what I'm saying. Your vote matters. What you do in this world matters. One person can make a huge change. That's like inspirational. I love that.
You can see it. You can be it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Because it also teaches the men around her, like, oh, yeah. Like, first it starts in her family, right? So the men in her family are like, well, obviously she's good at this, right?
Right. Like, I guess I make more money if I listen to her. Sounds good.
Yeah, and then the men on the outside of the family are like, oh, well, if they're listening to her, oh, she's good at, oh, okay. So this is how also men can make a difference in the affairs of sexism.
Yes.
You guys we need you guys. So as much as we need women to chart out a course for themselves in the world.
Yeah.
She was they said of her reputation, she was such a good businesswoman that it was said that she could trade dust for gold.
Wow.
Yeah. Now, these caravans that she was famous for needed leaders to guide them. And because she did not like traveling, she often hired men for these activities after a careful selection process. These men had to travel around Arabia to sell their products. One of them was the future prophet, aka the messenger of God, Muhammad.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Wow.
Whom she hired to manage a caravan to Syria.
That's amazing. Oh my God.
Now, so he goes off on this caravan trip, and while he's away, and then they come back, she is impressed by his business acumen, his heart. He's hardworking, smart. She's just very impressed. And also, when he returns, one of her other servants told her that he was also very trustworthy and pure, and he had a pureness of heart that he showed throughout the trip.
Was he also very single?
You see where I'm going.
I dated.
Now, up until this time, Khadijah had been married twice before.
Oh, really?
Yes. And she had children with her previous husbands. But again, she's a businesswoman. So she's an unusual woman, I think, even by today's standard.
I would say so.
Which money and success will, that does help. And then she
pays for all the children.
Exactly. But she's also from a highly regarded and high status family. So that helps as well. But she had been married twice before. But the young Muhammad, she's thinking, okay, maybe. She was known for her free spirit.
Okay.
And so the two had a courtship and got married.
Oh my God, this is her. Oh, okay. Wow.
According to most sources, she was about 40 years old, like I said, with children from a previous marriage.
Okay, girl.
And the future prophet Muhammad was about 25.
All right. Pick that young man. Teach
him. Again, this is the 6th century. So even though she was older than him, and they say about 40 years, they're not sure because even after they got married, they had several more children.
So it's so interesting because they didn't really keep count like we do. I don't think like age was, So she could have, I'm sure she was older than him.
Yeah.
But who knows? And honestly, I mean, if y'all love each other, you do you. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. So by today's standards, and in the Quran, of course, and in Muslim tradition, Khadijah is often referred to by Muslims as the mother of believers.
Really?
And this is why. Yeah, this is why. Because all of this happened, again, before the revelation for Muhammad, about 15 years before he would have his first revelation.
Okay.
From the Archangel Gabriel, which he had around 610. And the first time he had this revelation, he was confused and distressed. And he came home and he told Khadijah about it. Now, this is why who you marry really matters.
Right. Very important. Listen up. Okay, go on.
After listening to him and more importantly, believing him, she calmed him down and took him to consult with her cousin, Wargar ibn Nafal, a Hanif or believer in monotheism and the knowledgeable of the Christian tradition.
Okay.
So again, forgive me if I butchered his name. I'm so sorry. Now at this time, Muhammad, he's thinking he's possessed by a jinn or like a demon.
Okay.
But it was the cousin who explained to him that the angel in question was not a demon, but Gabriel or Jibril in
yes.
Jibril in Arabic. The same archangel who came to speak to Moses.
I was going to say, if he's knowledgeable about like Christianity and via Judaism, he this would feel familiar to him, actually.
Yeah, this is why it's good to have good counsel in your life. People really, who surround you, who give you good advice. Yeah,
exactly.
So from that moment on, the revelations to the Prophet Muhammad continued. Thus, as told to the Chronicles of Tabari, the first person in history to convert to Islam was Khadijah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Stop.
In Islamic tradition, Khadijah is considered and appreciated for the important role she played in supporting the Prophet and in his fight against his enemies. And one of the Kutub al-Sita, original books of the compilations of the Hadith, or the sayings and acts attributed to Muhammad, the Sahih Muslim, the following hadith about the Prophet's wife can be read. Quote, Allah granted me no better wife than she.
Oh.
She had faith in my message when people rejected it. She believed in me when people called me a liar. She shared her wealth to ease my grief when people abandoned me. And she gave me, by the grace of Allah, the progeny that no other wife could give. End quote.
What? Wow. He like gave her all that credit. Can we learn from this moment? Thank you.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So according to traditional sources, Khadijah was instrumental in supporting the Prophet in the creation of Islam by reassuring her husband of the authenticity of his first revelations, which ultimately provided him confidence in his revelation. She essentially broke the glass ceiling. Even women today would aspire to do what she did 1,400 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah. Now, this is how Asad Zamin described the first Muslim woman in history, Khadijah, in a BBC article. Okay. She goes on to say, quote, indeed, Khadijah's story, in addition to showing the journey of an extraordinary woman, allows us to deconstruct many prejudices about Islam and the conditions of Muslim women throughout history. Khadijah, the first Muslim woman and the first wife of Muhammad, was not an oppressed or homebound or Orientalist or culturalist thinking would have us to believe. She was quite the opposite. Until the end of her life, it was her who led her business, and everyone respected her, not only for being Muhammad's wife, but for her enormous qualities, a source of inspiration for Muslims. The Prophet himself placed her among the highest women in history from a spiritual point of view, along with Miriam, Aisha, and his daughter Fatima, end quote.
There's a Miriam? They have a Miriam? Oh,
they have a Miriam.
Oh, it's amazing.
You know, Arabs and Jews are cousins.
Same.
Y'all cousins.
We're like first cousins.
Yeah,
we need
to
stop
cousins.
This mess because we are literally first cousins. We are
literally.
All, and that's interesting. What is interesting, people don't realize this, is that we're all Semitic. So we put, anti-Semitic, you think Jews, but what we are Semitic people from that part of the world. And we are the same. We just, you believed in that and we believed in that, but we're the same. That's just like, anyways. Also, like, what an amazing woman. I'm totally
amazing woman.
I was like,
6th century.
What you said was 16th century, right? And you were like, what
6.
I said was. Wow.
See, 6 TH.
Yep. She also makes me feel like I should do more with my life.
I know, right? I'm like, I feel like such a bum. And then another associate professor of Islamic history at the University of Leeds, Fozia Bora, also goes on to say about her, quote, for me, as a historian and as a Muslim, Khadijah is an inspiring figure like Fatima, one of her daughters with Muhammad, and Aisha, among other women. It is wonderful for me to be able to teach my students about these women, end quote.
I love it. Do you know, I was listening to a podcast. I wish I could remember what it was. It was probably Dark History. I listen to it a lot. 25% of the world is Muslim.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Like, we don't, in the West, like, if you're listening elsewhere, you're like, duh. But like, there's this sense of like, most people are not, they are other. They're not other. In the whole world, they're 25%. let us know
I know
that.
this because I remember growing up, I had thank God, even though I grew up in Florida, I went to a pretty multicultural high school. And I remember I had this friend, Sadia. Sadia I believe her family was from Iran, but they were Muslim. And I remember she was very close with her father. And she'd tell me that her father, every morning, he was an engineer, he would make her lunch.
Oh.
And I was so shocked because we grew up thinking, because of media, that Muslim men are hard and, they don't like women and da, da, da. And I was just, when she told me that, she was like, oh no, I'm like, she was like, sounds like she was his favorite, but she's the oldest. But they would talk together often. And like, I just thought, see, this is why you need to know different kinds of people, because just talking to her, and I knew she was so smart and, the kind of girl I like, just smart and confident. And, and she was just like, oh yeah, me and my father are very close and he makes my lunch every day and we talk before I go to school. And I just thought that was just such a lovely thing. And from that moment on, because I didn't know any Muslim men personally up, at that point in my life. I was still a kid and I didn't have a lot of experience with other kinds of religious people. And that moment, knowing her, and again, knowing how smart and capable, and I think we were in it might have been my honors or my AP world history class or something like that.
It was a smarty pants class. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a smarty. Yeah. We were nerds.
Yeah.
And I remember her just telling me that, and she would just talk about, oh yeah, my father, he taught me how to drive and all. And I was just thinking, I was like, oh, like
he's letting you drive? According to media.
He's just a proud father.
Right.
He doesn't hate women.
I gotta say, like, growing up Jewish, there's a lot that can be told. And it's been an interesting journey for me growing up in America with, access to people from all over the place. And I remember I kind of had a similar moment in junior high. There was one girl in our town, it was a very not diverse town. Like, I was the Jew, basically. And we actually had that in common. Like, at first I don't remember, what do you call her head was covered.
The hijab?
The hijab. And I was nervous because I don't know, I was told some things that were maybe not true. They were probably not true. But she and I were the same. Like, we were both like, our families were there's a kosher, I forget, halal. They're halal.
Halal, yeah.
And we were kosher. And we talk about how, and I remember she was like, it's a similar story to you, that her and her dad doesn't trust halal. So there's a place you can go to actually kill the animal in the correct way. Like, or I don't know if he didn't trust it or he wanted to do it himself. I think it was more that. But like, and I remember being like, y'all are better at this than we are. We just go to the kosher butcher and, give them too much money and we get food. But like, I just think it's really, when you put, and again, 25% of the world, we have to, everywhere you go, like, don't let Brave New World win. Put a face to a name, put a story to a name. It will make the world better. It will make you less fearful of other people.
Yeah, and talk to different kinds of people, travel if you can. But if you're not, I mean, because America's so, diverse that you can actually find people, who are not like you, who, you see have been demonized in movies and TV and for whatever reason that has nothing to do with normal people living their lives.
Right.
And you learn, like I said, from that moment on, my interpretation or my impression of Muslim men was just like, oh, they're just like other men. Like, there's no like, ooh, deep, dark,
nope.
Those terrible stereotypes or anything like that. And I saw just firsthand, like, what a great relationship she had with her dad. And I was just like, and I think I even said to her, I was like, I've never heard a story about a Muslim man being so like tender and, with his daughters. Cause, if you watch TV, you would think they hate all their daughters and only like their sons. And she's like, no.
Yeah. I remember reading a book from an author and I was very young. I was like early 20s. And it was like, the author was like talking about how sort of inhuman they are. And I stopped reading the book. And then someone else later was like, yeah, that author has issues. Like you were, because I just felt like I'd read other stuff that brought humanity to all kinds of people. So I thought, oh, this is because growing up the way I grew up, I've often searched for a better sense of what's really happening, and I'm always still learning, but like,
yeah.
It's really important to me. This is amazing to me. You've blown my mind today.
Oh, I'm so glad. Well, I'm almost finished.
Okay, I keep going.
Again, it's the 6th century, so it's not too much more. But now, according to Sunni, because in Islam, there's 2 major sects. There's the Sunni and the Shia traditions. Okay. So in the Sunni tradition, interpretation of the sources, the couple, Khadijah and the Prophet Muhammad had 4 daughters to survive into adulthood. They had other children, but 4 daughters who survived into adulthood.
Yeah,
again, forgive me for the pronunciation. Kulthum, Raghia, Zainab, and Fatima. But according to the Shia tradition, their daughter Fatima is their only daughter.
Oh, interesting.
Fatima would later become an important figure in Islam, and her descendants, known as the Sharifs and the Sayyids, have played important social roles to this day. Muhammad had other sons and daughters, but they all either died young or failed to produce a long line of descendants. But Fatima stood at the head of the genealogy that steadily enlarged through the generations and became the venerated line of the Al-Abiyat, translates to people of the house or the holy family of the Prophet Muhammad.
Oh, okay.
So to the Shia, she is particularly important because she was married to Ali, whom Shia considered to be the legitimate heir of the authority of the Prophet Muhammad and the first of his imams.
Okay.
And then the sons of Fatima and Ali, Hassan and Hassan and Hussein, Hassan and Hussein.
Okay.
Hassan and Hussein are thus viewed as the Shia as the rightful inheritors of the tradition. So again, this is getting into the difference between the Shia and the Sunni. Again, I'm not a Muslim, so I can't really speak to the nuances of the different sects of Islam.
But dude, like if you are, you can write to us. We'll tell you how to, and
yes.
we'll bring it up on another episode because we're happy to share.
And I, for fear of being disrespectful or, saying something that's not correct, I don't want to get too into that. But that's from one of the sources I got. That was the explanation. Now, Khadijah died.
Not historians.
Hashtag not historians. And also, as always, if this, piques your interest, always go and seek out your own sources, more, reputable sources, things that are a lot more in depth and detailed. I'm sure a lot of this is in the Quran or any of the other teachings of Islam. So we highly encourage you to do that. But Khadijah died in or around 619, which is also known as the year of sorrow in the Islam faith. Muhammad had no other wives while she was alive and had no children by any of his later wives that survived until adulthood.
Really?
Yeah. So that is Khadijah BINT Khuwaylid. Khadijah BINT Khuwaylid.
Wow.
Again, forgive me. She's the first wife of the Prophet Muhammad.
Okay. I have a question. So how long did she live? Can you tell?
So I would imagine if they were married, if she was married about, let's say she was 40 when they got married. 15 years later in 610, he started having the revelations. So she would be 60 in 610. So if she died in 619, she would be 69.
Okay.
Wait, 70.
She'd be 55. It was 15 years later. All right. So in her 60s.
No. So it was 15 years later in 610. So she'd be 60 when he started having the revelations.
Right.
And then if she passed in 619, which was 9 years after the revelations, then she'd be 69.
What? In a land without antibiotics, she lived a good long life. That's what I got to say about that.
Yes.
What an amazing woman.
I know, right? We had 2 amazing women, as always, because we have great taste. And
we do. I mean, I don't want to pat our own backs or anything, but I'm doing it right now. So Cool.
Yes. But I love how different they are, but also they both had extraordinary. Your life is not too small or too big to have an impact on a positive impact, especially because I always live my life by when I'm dead and gone, I want people to remember me fondly. And,
yeah.
And I think that both of these women, even though they lived centuries, one literally 1,400 years later from the other, had their own difficulties and joys as well. But they had positive impact on people that came after them. And that's really what it's all about. So our notorious women this week were notorious because they were heroic.
Yep. I know Lavetta's going to make up for it next week, but okay.
Oh, yeah. I like a murderess.
I
like a bad girl, but
you gotta round it out. These women were incredible. Like,
incredible.
I feel like today's episode is brought to you by You Matter. One life can matter a whole lot.
You matter. Oh, I like that. Hashtag you matter.
Hashtag you matter. Look at me starting something.
Look at you.
I don't know that I really started anything.
Well, guys, that wraps it up for another episode of Notorious Women Podcast. Remember to follow us on all the things.
Yes.
And also, more importantly, if today's episode piques your interest, please go and do more research on these wonderful women, but also tell your friends and families about it. Give us a 5-star. 5 stars.
5 stars. It's
5
5. Yeah.
Only 5. 5 out of 5 stars review. And Miriam, where can they send us an email or find us on social?
Lavetta, I know you're giving me time, but I'm actually totally ready. Right? I'm totally ready. Okay.
Look at you.
So first of all, we're on Instagram. I need your help. Please come follow us. Everything is fine. Sometimes men like to have an opinion on our Instagram. So come, join us. And we can help explain how it works in the world. Okay, so it's Instagram, look up Notorious Women Podcast. We're there. And then Gmail is notoriouswmpod@gmail.com. I look up my email all the time, as does Lavetta. So I'm bored. So write us. Tell us all the things. Give us suggestions. We're down with it all.
Or any corrections, but just be nice about it. Just, I'm sensitive. I look like a strong Black woman, but I'm really, that cartoon Pinky and the Brain?
Yes! Sorry, I'm yelling. I love Pinky and the Brain. We're watching the new Animaniacs now with my children because I'm trying to raise them right,
Yes. Well, on the outside, I look like Brain, but on the inside, I'm really Pinky. I just want to be loved.
Listen,
be nice to us.
That's a great description of you, Lavetta.
And right, brain. Love it. Plot to take over the world. And on that note, we will see you guys next week. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.